Momentum. In the textbook, it's mass times velocity, a cold equation for a moving object. But in Midland, momentum isn't just an equation, it's alive. It moves, breathes, dances, rises from the ground up. Momentum pushes you, giving you the nerve to try something new, take a risk, achieve greatness. The impact is visible, etched in the steel and concrete of our skyline and in the bright lights of the night. Momentum is generational, fueled by the grit of those who came before. You see it in the faces of tomorrow. People who don't just wait for the future, they build it. And as time moves forward, that momentum gains speed, growing faster and more powerful with every handshake, every hug, and every heartbeat. You feel it today, and tomorrow you will feel it even stronger. Because around here, an object in motion stays in motion. That's momentum. And that is Midland.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with you today. And I have to tell you, my son, I showed him that video. He's 16 years old, and he said, "That's tough," which is the highest praise from a 16-year-old boy. So help me thank our city staff who helped us put that together. They did a great job. I want to just also say thank you so much to our Midland Chamber of Commerce for the work that they do to put this event together and the others like it. These are some of the most well-attended events in our community, and so we're really thankful for the work that goes into this and all of the sponsors that come together here. I also want to point out we have a lot of our former mayors that are here in the room, and I have this new appreciation for all of the work that they have done in our community, and they've stayed committed to Midland even after their time of service. And so to each one of you men, I want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for the support that you continue to show to me and to our council. Our council members are here, most of them, and I really am thankful for the opportunity that I have to serve with them as well. But I want to point out, before we go forward, this is a really meaningful year for our nation, the 250th. It's also a very meaningful year for our community. This is our 145th year as a city since we were established. And we're going to be spending some time, and you'll see a lot of things coming forward as we approach the 250th celebration. There will be more community events that are taking place. But I think it's very important for us to pause and to look back and to talk about some of the things that have gone well in our community. And we have opportunities like this to go back and look to the past and say, what have we done well? What do we want to carry forward? And then what are the things that we want to change and do differently? And so we're going to talk about a few of those things just over the last year here together. And then we're going to have an opportunity with our panel discussion with different Midlanders to sit and talk through some of those things further. But for nearly a century and a half, Midland has been defined by people who work hard, who take risks, and who build something better. That spirit is very much alive today. And over the past year, the focus of our council has been very simple: to make the city work better for the people that live here. And we're committed to continuing with that. And so we're going to start with some of our city services that we have strengthened over the past year. We've been improving how the residences and our businesses interact with City Hall, and we've seen a lot of changes to the way that things happen there. We've introduced online systems for building permits, for restaurant health inspections. We've also reduced turnaround times to make the process just easier for people to navigate. We know that that work is not completed. We have more work to do. Some of you faithfully point out the opportunities for improvement that we have, so thank you for that. But I also want to say that we have less friction in a lot of those processes than we've had in the past, and that is really due to a diligent staff. So we've expanded a lot of those opportunities. See, Click, Fix. We've talked about this several years now. We are seeing so much impact from See, Click, Fix. You can see there at the bottom, 14,900 closed tickets over the launch since 2024. That's incredible. And if you're not using that as a resource just for the things you observe in your neighborhood, I want you to download that today and commit to help us out there. You help us to keep Midland beautiful and improved because of the feedback that we get from you because of that. With our financial stewardship, we have seen 3 years. We just received our 3rd year audit with no findings. This is a really significant accomplishment. 3 years after decades of audits that did have findings. This means that our internal processes with our finance team are really firing on all cylinders. And I want to thank them. Their leadership team is here for the City of Midland and for our, so let's give them a round of applause. Christy, please pass our thanks along to your team. We know that it is a strong team effort, and we're really grateful. They have applied over the last couple of years. Really, most of these have happened just in the last few months. We have now attained 4 stars out of 6 available stars from the Comptroller's office at the state level. And those stars represent the transparency and the data availability that we have through our city website and our communication processes. You can find our entire budget and all of our audits online and dig into that as deeply as you want to. And so we want to just celebrate that with them today and talk about those big wins for our community. We're also going to talk a little bit about just building our workforce and our culture. The City of Midland is a place, we're employing 1,000 people roughly. This is one of the larger employees in our community. And we want this to be a place that people want to work. And we've done a lot of things to encourage that. And we're working to improve that culture day after day and year after year. One of the ways that we've done that is through the Be the Energy Awards. So this is something that somebody can nominate a city employee, and then we can provide recognition and a small just token of our appreciation for the work that they're doing. We have given 140 employees this fiscal year alone Be the Energy Awards to encourage them to keep up the strong work. I also want to point out Greg Wells. He's here on the left. He was actually off duty on a flight, and one of the passengers experienced a medical emergency, and he stepped forward, provided CPR, and saved that person's life. That's the kind of folks that we want to employ at the City of Midland, and we want to recognize the work that they're doing. We're really thankful for that. We know that when we invest in our people, we deliver better service to our community, and so we're committed to doing that. Public safety remains the top priority for me and for our city council and for our senior staff. We recognize that the people that live in this community want to feel safe and want to know that they are going to have a response whenever they call the police or the fire department. And so we want to say thank you to those officers for the work that they do and the commitment that they show to our community. I just want to point out a couple of statistics to you. Our motor vehicle theft, just in the last year, is down 27%. Motor vehicle theft has been a problem for our community, and we're continuing to fight that. But to see that reduction by 27%, our robberies are down more than 50%, and overall crime continues to trend in the right direction. We've also had quite a few traffic stops. Some of you may have been fallen victim to a traffic stop. I don't know if you may have the same sense that I have, that anytime that I'm out driving on our roads, I feel like everyone in Midland is driving there with me. And our council told our police department, we want to make sure that enforcement is a priority again. And we've watched some of those enforcement efforts really help to slow people down and help to make a difference for our community. We're committed to seeing that go forward. The other thing that I want to point out to you here is that we have 186 sworn officers and 13 vacancies. That, just to put that into perspective for you, when I started in 2019 on city council, we had 52 vacancies in our police department. And so to go from 52 to just 13 shows that we're working hard and we're really trying to improve their compensation, improve their work-life balance, and their ability to thrive as police officers here in Midland. Our public safety, and this is where we're going to talk about the Safe Passage holiday campaign. There were definitely a lot of officers out and about during the holiday season because we know that that's when traffic is really intense for our community. And so 2,856 stops and over 1,000 citations that were given. That may not sound like something to celebrate, but I believe it is something to celebrate. We need that kind of enforcement to keep our community safe and thriving. And even more significant, our fatalities are down 30% compared to the 10-year average. So we've seen that reduction this year, but we're watching over the 10-year average, we're down 30% in our traffic fatalities, and nearly 50% compared to the peak years. And so these are really important statistics for us to remember. Again, we know that we have further work to do to be able to improve this and to go to the place that we want to be, but we're seeing a lot of these statistics trend in the right direction. Focused enforcement, better data, and targeted investments really are making a difference. I want to turn our attention now to our infrastructure investment, and we have a little video for you.
The Wadley extension is now open. We've been waiting for a long time and we're so excited. It helps with the connectivity in my district, District 4, as well as the entire city. That way we have another east-west corridor to help kind of take traffic off of 191 and Andrews Highway. We've had some great partners, TxDOT and MDC and the county, and we're all working together, and so it's exciting to see these road projects come to fruition.
Infrastructure is where we've made some of our most significant investments as a community, and that began before I was ever on council. The 2017 road bond was a visionary project that previous generations of leaders really brought forward and this community committed to, and we've now completed that. It took a long time to get that done, but we continue to stay committed to infrastructure investment with $64 million in this year's budget alone in infrastructure investment. That's over 13% of the city's total budget. So this is a substantial demonstration of how committed we are to infrastructure. We're going to be also adding more to the infrastructure out further from town. We're going to see Todd Drive overpass. That construction is going to start hopefully in April. And so we are going to see the completion of the North Loop. So Mayor Bobby Burns, I know you gave a lot to that project. We're going to get it finished, and we're really excited for the partnerships that we have with that. We have all of the Wadley improvements, the fairgrounds improvements, Highway 158, and all of the concerns that our community has out there. We're committed to seeing those things through and advocating at the state and federal level. Councilman Jack Ladd does great work for us as he is working towards a lot of these projects with our local MPO. And then all of our council members are committed in various different ways, whether that be water or drainage issues or our roadways. We are a team effort trying to get the funding that we need to make those improvements over time. These projects are not always visible. You just really want the water to come on when you turn the tap in your house. And so city does its best work when you don't even recognize what we're doing. And so we want you to know that we are working to make sure that tap water is coming out of your tap, not just today, but for your children and your grandchildren and for future generations of Midland. Downtown Midland, yesterday we got to celebrate the Omni Hotel and the groundbreaking that has really been so many years in the making. We've had multiple hotel projects that have been part of our community rhetoric and discussion and narrative over the last few decades. Millions of dollars literally have been spent on some of these projects, some of which did not come to fruition. And so really to celebrate the Omni Hotel and also stacking that on top of the investment in our Centennial Park, in our Bush Center that we're enjoying today, all of those downtown investments really are transforming the community. And we're seeing that in the programming as well with Midland Merry Lights, which is one of the largest, over the time of that, we had more people moving around our downtown than we've ever had before. How many of you participated in Midland Merry Lights or came down here with your families? It's a huge win. I'm so thankful for the work that it was done by staff and the vision that they've had. We're going to continue to grow that, build it out, and make it a destination for our whole community. But we want to make sure that we continue to strengthen our convention market through these hotels that we're developing downtown, support our local businesses, and continue to transform our downtown into a destination. So more work ahead on that as well. With our parks, we are making significant progress on a lot of community amenities. We've talked about this, I think, every year that I have been here with you about how young our population is, with a median age of about 32 years old, and all of the baby boom that's taking place right here in our community. Parks and quality of life amenities are not just something that would be nice to have. They are essential for the population that we want to move here and make their lives here. And so we're making those investments accordingly. $16 million Reyes Mashburn Nelms renovation was open this past year, and it's already serving families not just here in Midland, but from across our region as we host tournaments and other things. The construction and what's playing here in the background is our Beal Park improvements. It's over a $45 million project that we're phasing out over time. Phase 1 is actually coming to completion. We're sprigging the grass on 62 new soccer fields. Catch that, 62 new soccer fields. Our MSA soccer is the largest youth sports that we have here in our community. And many of you have probably had to experience what it is to drive to multiple different parks to be able to watch your kids play. We're going to have them all at one park and have those improvements, but we're also going to have an amphitheater, and we're going to have a splash park and other improvements to make that truly a destination park for Midland families. That project is going to move forward, and we're hoping to have that phase 1 with those soccer fields open in the fall of 2026. So hopefully you get to experience the work that we've done there very soon. We're also really proud of the support that the city has provided for the Midland Athletic Syndicate and the work that those guys have done. Many of these are people that I went to school with growing up who have seen a need in our community. They've responded with their own dollars and investment, and they're seeing this project through to fruition. And I hope if you know any of the guys that have worked so diligently on the Midland Athletic Syndicate to get this indoor sports facility together, I hope that you'll tell them thank you for the investment that they've made into our community. They're taking their kids around the nation in many cases and watching them play in other places, and they said Midland needs to have these same opportunities here for Midland kids. So more visitors, more activity, and more support for our local businesses as soon as these things all open in their full capacity. Midland remains one of the most important economic centers in the state and the country. And with oil over $100 a barrel, and all of the things that we're seeing in international news and geopolitics, we know that the Permian Basin is critical to the success of the United States. And we understand the obligation and the responsibility that we hold here as Midland leadership to make sure that we truly are fueling the nation. With the Permian Basin producing nearly half of the oil in the United States, benefiting from that strength, we never want to turn our back on what fuels Midland and what fuels America, but we also recognize the need to expand our economic profile. And so there's a lot of work going into retail expansion like Costco. I'm certainly doing my part to help them be successful there at Costco with teenage boys at my house. But I also, with a lot of the work that we're doing with AST Space Mobile and other companies that are coming to our community, they're investing into the infrastructure, putting capital projects into our community and expanding our tax base in that way. They're also bringing workforce here and expanding some of the offerings in ways that hold hands with oil and gas rather than competing with it. And so we're so thankful for them. That diversification strengthens our long-term stability and our growth. So we've talked a lot about where we've come from, and I want to turn our attention to where we're headed. This is a graphic that is kind of complex, so I would encourage you, take a picture of that slide and study it a little bit. It has some really good information about how the water comes to Midland, but most of that water is not, and in fact, all of that water comes to us from outside Midland County. All of the municipal water that we rely upon. And that took a lot of work and visionary leadership that began many years before any of us were in leadership in Midland. We're relying on those things. And thanks to the vision that they had years ago, almost 50 years ago, to acquire T-Bar Wellfield, and then the vision that previous councils had to build that out and bring it to our community, we now have water stability for today and for tomorrow. But we know we have to have planning for future generations of Midland. And so our council is committed to making sure we build out the infrastructure that's necessary, not just for today, but for future, for our kids and for our grandkids to be able to enjoy and count on the tap turning on when we go in. So this is part of our 100-year water plan. And the decisions that we make today are going to shape Midland for generations. In West Texas, he who has the water makes the rules. And we want to make sure that we have the water so that we can make the rules for the way that we're going to grow and expand as a community. We're also working closely with Midland County and with TxDOT, also partnering with Odessa. Very thankful to see their mayor and some of their leadership here today. Thank you, Cal, for being here. And just for the partnerships that we enjoy with our local entities and our regional entities. Infrastructure projects take decades to come to fruition, and so we're planning ahead for I-14, for I-27. We're planning ahead for an outer loop system that we're making investments in some of the components of that today, but with a vision for the future to say, how do we get freight traffic, how do we get oil and gas industry traffic off of our roads and away from our commuter traffic? We believe that we need to separate those things out. And so that's going to be an expensive and a long-term project, but we're committed to working on that together. We go and have conversations regularly with TxDOT officials in Austin and with some of our local advocacy groups to help us to strengthen those conversations, to really bring those dollars back to our community. As we look at some of that, in the I-27, I-14 and the outer loop are some of those bigger projects, but you're going to see significant investment in Highway 158 at Briarwood and at Wadley. You're going to see significant investment at Fairgrounds and some of our other major thoroughfares in the near term, even as we work on some of these bigger projects for the future. We also have a generational opportunity here, and I don't think this has been talked about very much publicly, but the city owns 2,600 acres in the northeast of Midland, and we see this as an opportunity to expand some of our development in that area. And so you can see the acreage there in yellow. That represents land that we own that we can begin to develop out. And so we're working on a plan to be able to do that with forethought rather than reacting to development. How could we set zoning plans in place? How could we provide a vision for what that can look like into the future? This is an AI-generated plan. I don't know if we have that much water in Midland, but you can see that we have the opportunity to think through what could this look like? How could we plan for grocery stores or future schools or some of those things? Not that we would begin building those things or investing in them today, but so that we can be planning for them, so that we can show that future generations of Midland that we had a plan and we were trying to set them up for success. I believe that's my main responsibility as Midland's mayor today, to set future generations up for success. And I believe that we have the council to help us partner in that. This is a generational opportunity to thoughtfully develop a master plan community, and so we're taking steps in that direction. We're planning for growth the right way before it happens, even as we deal with growth that's coming to us right now today. So, as we reflect on Midland's 145-year history, it's evident that this community has always been defined by people who are willing to work hard and to solve problems. I talk a lot about the word grit. That is something that my family really values, is to be a gritty Midlander, to understand that the work has to get done and we have to be committed to accomplishing it. And so as we recognize the grit of our city staff, as we recognize the grit of the companies that make our community great, as we recognize the grit of the people in this room to stay in the game, to continue to invest your leadership into our community, I want to say thank you for the vision that you have all had, for the investments that you continue to make in our community, and for the way that you support us as we go forward. This is not an easy job, not for me, not for our council members, or for our staff. And I recognize that you are all doing tasks that are difficult as well. But we have the grit here in Midland to slingshot us into the future and to set our future generations up for success. So with that, I'm going to close my remarks, and I really thank you for your attention today. And some of you may know some of these folks very well, and some of you may not know them very much. But I think that the panel discussion, as we were talking through with Evan Thomas and his team at the Chamber and trying to cast a vision for what today would be, we wanted to acknowledge that the city of Midland and the state of Midland is not relegated to the city as an entity. It's what we're all doing as a community to build together. And our chamber helps to direct our attention back to that often. And so as we talked about who would be good folks to help us talk through that, these are three people that I really respect and have had the opportunity to work with in different capacities. And I want you all to know them. And so we're going to have a conversation here today. But I wanted to get started and just kind of go down the line and let you introduce yourselves and give a little bit of your background and history for the people that may not know you. We'll start with you, Joey.
Thank you, Mayor Blong. I have to start by saying I had to clarify when you asked me to do this on April 1st that this wasn't a joke. This is a risky day to have a big event like this, but y'all showed up, so thank you for being here. This is such a fun event to talk at because I see so many familiar faces, which I think is what makes the Permian Basin and Midland so special. If we have not crossed paths yet, my name is Joey Hopkins. I'm married to Lauren, and if you know Lauren, she's the more fun half of the Hopkinses. We've got 2 little boys that keep us super busy. I grew up here. I moved back, and in that time, I've worked in oil and gas. We own a small business that we operate, and I spend most of my time as executive director for Permian Basin Habitat, where we get to literally change people's lives through helping them buy their first house. It's a really cool thing. So thank you for having me today.
Absolutely. Shankar, could you introduce yourself?
Yep. So Shankar Annamalai. Dr. Woods, thank you for, I know it's a tough name to pronounce, so thank you for that. There's some tough names in the Bible too, so it's a lot. I've been in Midland for 6 years, married to an awesome spouse, Tiffany Annamalai, who is a therapist here in town. We also have 3 pretty crazy children, a 15-year-old and a very mischievous 12-year-old daughter that thought it would be really funny today to have a bunch of April Fool pranks. So she hid my Aggie ring, she put salt in my toothpaste, and so I had a really busy afternoon. But instead, I'm going to ask ChatGPT, what's the appropriate way to prank a 12-year-old? So if you have any ideas, I'll be happy to hear them. And then a 10-year-old son. I work for a company called SLB, which was formerly called Schlumberger, and then before that, I worked at ChampionX, which was recently acquired by SLB. And what we do is we're an oilfield service company. So when you think of subsurface all the way to kind of the fence line of a refinery, we have technology and services that we provide. So in West Texas, we have over 2,000 employees that on any given day are out driving around providing services. And so to quote Hamilton, I like to say that oilfield service, we get the job done. And so, in West Texas, as many of you know, most of the employees in the industry are going to be on the service side, right? And so these are men and women that wake up at all hours of the day, fight a lot of crazy climates and crazy conditions and safety environments to go make sure that operators are able to produce those hydrocarbons safely and efficiently.
Excellent. Claire, can you introduce yourself for us?
Yes, my name's Claire Ramirez. I'm born and raised right here in Midland, Texas. I went away for a little bit. I ended up at Baylor, but when I came back, it was an obvious choice to dive right in. So right after pandemic, I started the Scout Guide West Texas. It's a publication. You may have received it in the mail or seen it at your doctor's office, but my goal is to make local cool again. So I represent 200 businesses across the Permian Basin, and my job is to make sure that our community knows what it means to support local. And so my husband's here with me today, and we have 2 children, Knox and Mills, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, thank y'all very much for joining me. And I don't know if y'all caught this, but I was born and raised here, and then Joey and Claire also were here, and then Shankar, you got here as quick as you could, so we're glad you're here and you've joined us. But just so that we know who's here in the room with us, how many of you were born and raised or spent a good portion of your childhood and growing up years here in our community? That's a lot of folks here in our community. Now let's say, of those people, how many of you said you would never come back? Yeah, and I did too, and now I'm the mayor. So tell your children that's how that works. But I think that we have some things about Midland that are really important and some things that we want to talk about. We have a nonprofit leader, we have a large organization leader here with SLB, and then we have an advocate for small business and running her own small business here in our community. So I want us to have a kind of a holistic talk about what are the things that are important to us. We all come from different backgrounds. Many of us have different stages of life. We want to think of ourselves as young, but I don't know. We're kind of on that threshold of are we still young or are we not? We don't know. But I want us to just talk a little bit about what are some of the ideal things to do in Midland with your young families. What are your favorite things to do? And I'll just throw that out. Who has something you want to share with us about what your ideal weekend would look like?
I'll go first.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm in the first seat. So when I was thinking about this, it's kind of funny when I think about traveling and the things that I'm going to do on a weekend in another place. That's what I actually love about Midland, because I do the same thing here. So ideal Midland is waking up and having coffee maybe at Far West or one of the other coffee places, taking a walk around a neighborhood. Those are fun things that I love doing in other cities that I travel to. There's typically a million activities. People say there's nothing to do in Midland, and that's simply not true. There's so many things to do here. So on any given Saturday, there's something that you could pop into and spend a couple hours on. And then we have great restaurants. So I love eating or inviting people over to dinner on a Saturday night. Sunday's fun. We've got church, maybe brunch afterwards. And then a little known secret is Midland Polo Club on a Sunday afternoon. I know I've seen all of y'all out there. It's such a great asset to Midland. No other town in the entire U.S. of our size has a polo club, and it's very accessible. It's free. You can take snacks. It's a great family activity. So that's my chill, laid-back Midland weekend.
Love it. Shankar, what's your ideal weekend?
Yeah, look, I think with many of us having busy weeks in schools and stuff like that, I think Friday afternoon, I do find myself with a cocktail in hand and hanging around the family. And look, I think we get a bad rap in West Texas about the weather. And so as long as you can, find a cool spot, like we find ourselves having dinner outside as a family. I like to run, so Saturday mornings, again, the weather's usually pretty good to go out and enjoy the weather that we have in West Texas. We could use a couple more trails, but I know we're getting better on it.
Yep.
I find myself trespassing on some caliche roads, so if you've seen me on a security camera, I promise I'm not involved in oil field theft. And then on Saturday afternoons, we're carting kids around, lots of different sporting events. I love that our kids can play and be involved in a litany of unique sports. They have a tendency to pick expensive sports, so we got to work on that. And then on a Saturday afternoon, like a lot of us, there's just a great community, right? And I think, this place, more than anywhere my wife and I have lived, we've just found that the people are just so fun to be around. There's always somebody at a similar stage of life, whether you have young kids or, teen kids. You can find somebody to enjoy kind of a Saturday afternoon with. Sunday mornings, we're members at Redeemer Church, and so we love that there's a great, church community here in West Texas. And then on Sunday evenings, just enjoying all that Midland has to offer. I sometimes have responsibility for the kids on Sundays, and so I've enjoyed feeding them at Costco, so thanks again for that. It's a great way to feed a lot of kids, just going from station to station. But that's a typical Sunday for us and weekend.
Excellent. Claire, what about you?
We're pretty similar. My children are younger. We're at 5 and 7, so that means we're waking up early. What is sleeping in? That doesn't happen for us ever. But we are at that soccer field bright and early, and we've been really lucky lately with all these double headers back to back. So we'll be at the soccer field for a while, but I love going to our farmers markets. So it's a great way to hear a lot of stories. So finding out, why did you start this business? Hearing someone's why is so powerful, and stopping to hear it, they want to tell you. And so when you're going to those markets, I encourage you to stop and ask why they started the sourdough business or the jarring business or whatever it is. And then we love to make our dinner from that. So we'll grab a sourdough or whatever and then end up at Midland Meat, grab some meat, and we love to entertain. So having as many kids as we can into our tiny home and ending the night with cards or mahjong or something like that. And then our Sunday is almost identical to Joey's. You start your day at church, go to brunch, and then if we're lucky and everyone has enough energy, we end up at the polo fields.
Excellent. Well, I think I wanted to highlight some of those things because I think we do sometimes talk about nothing to do in Midland. And we know that that is just absolutely not true. We have busy lives and a lot of opportunities. So if you're not familiar with any of these things, I would encourage you to go out and check out something new in Midland that you're not familiar with before. I want to shift gears a little bit, and I want to talk, Shankar, kind of direct this question to you. And first of all, and let the others weigh in as you would like to, but Midland has historically made decisions in the context of booms and bust cycles as a community, and I think most of us in this room recognize that. And we know that commodity prices are always going to change. We've experienced it, and we anticipate that it will in the future. But I want to know, from your perspective, how should we as community leaders think about investing for our future? How should we think about that today? And why is today different than it was in the 80s or the 90s? And before we jump into that, I want to say, too, I'm very bullish on American energy. And I think that we have a really bright future ahead as an industry. But I do think we have to be practical about these boom-bust cycles and commodity prices. So, Shankar, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, it's. I don't want to go into the depths of capital discipline and the financial markets and how that's impacting and changing our industry. Look, I moved here 6 years ago, and I remember I think I came to a similar event. It was January of 2020, and everybody was like super excited about where the industry was going to go. And then obviously COVID happened, and we saw negative oil prices. And I bring that up because one thing I see in Midland that we do need to change the narrative on, and I think even in the 6 years I've been here, you see it, is this idea that Midland is very resilient. I love your comment about grit being such an important word. I mean, if we could make it through COVID, and look, even in my lifetime, we've had many once-in-a-lifetime events, and this industry and this community has been able to kind of navigate through that. The industry has shifted, right? Capital discipline is here, and so those, the amplitude and the frequency of the booms and busts are much, much different. I wasn't here in 1980, and so I know that some of those previous cycles were really different, but I think the financial markets are structurally different. I think that the companies that are producing and operating a lot of the wells in West Texas now are really different. And so we need to stop being scared, I think, of investing. And I think that's one thing, if you talk to folks that have been here for a while, it's like, well, hey, you just wait. And we have a bit of a cliche analogy internally that we tell our leaders, because you have to be confident. And I would hope that, looking across this room, I see a lot of confident, very smart, very capable leaders. And my wife and I have been fortunate to be in a lot of different cities, and Midland continues to impress us with the quality of intellectual capacity that we have. But we do need to be confident. And so we tell our leaders, it's like, look, if you're a bird on a branch, you don't sit there and say, oh, what happens if this branch breaks, right? Like, the bird knows it's going to be okay. And I think like Midland and West Texas and the Permian Basin has shown over and over, every time that branch breaks, like we find a new, ledge to perch on. And I think we as a community need to stop being scared about like what's happening next, or what we shouldn't do this because what if this changes? Like the history of our technologies and what we've been able to do. I mean, if we're figuring out how to drill 4-mile laterals and operate in environments that we never thought we could extract oil from, why are we worried about things that we can't control and what comes next? Like we've shown over and over that we're going to be okay. And so I think that we as a city need to say, hey, there's going to be new industries, new opportunities for us in West Texas. How do we kind of lose a little bit what I've seen in the last 6 years? And you're seeing it. You're seeing progress in the city. You're seeing really good investment. But we need to have that confidence. And I think we have what it takes to really turn that next chapter.
Absolutely. Joey, Claire, do y'all have any other thoughts about what you saw as investment in Midland over time and how you think today is different?
I want to commend these conversations. I think I moved back to Midland in 2010, and even if you compare Midland today to back then, it's a vastly different place. Our demographic, the investments that we're making, the conversations we're having are different, and that gives me a lot of hope to the future, honestly. So kudos.
Absolutely. Claire, any other thoughts there?
I think they covered it.
They got it. Well, I do think that this willingness to invest back into our community and our industry's willingness to pivot, I like what you said about don't be scared that the branch is going to break. Be ready to fly off and find the next thing if that does in fact happen. And I think we're well positioned for that as a community. Joey, I want to direct a question to you. Midland has really been known as an incredibly generous community for a long time. We're known for having more nonprofits per capita than maybe anywhere else. And there's some strengths that come along with that, but also maybe some weaknesses. From your perspective, what role does the nonprofit sector play in making Midland stronger? Where do we excel, and where do you think we could make some improvements?
This is something I'm really passionate about, so thank you for giving me the mic. I'm going to try to be brief. I think this industry is something that most people don't fully understand. I certainly didn't until I was in my role. But the nonprofit community in Midland is such an interesting place. So just as a data point, do any of y'all know how many nonprofits are in the Permian Basin? Do y'all know?
I don't know.
I think you know.
I do know. Thank you, Shankar. I'm setting you up. It's 1,100 nonprofits.
Wow.
So speaking to the per capita numbers, that's a really interesting number. And I think that's important because the nonprofit world affects us all. So I think a lot of times we think of nonprofits specifically serving low-income families or people that are most in need, but in reality, they serve everybody. And I think Centennial Park is a really good example. Centennial Park would not exist without a public-private partnership and then an entity, which is a nonprofit, to operate that in perpetuity. So that benefits everybody. So when you zoom in a little bit more to what the traditional thought of nonprofits are is serving maybe low-income families or people that have more needs, there is a huge community in Midland that I say keep the lights on here. And that is a really important demographic to all of society. None of us can function here if those people don't have what they need to thrive. At Habitat, we talk about giving people what they need to thrive. It's easy to look out in this room and see so many familiar faces, so many people who I've served on boards with, but it's also easy to forget the folks that aren't in this room. And the nonprofit community serves to keep those people in the bumpers. You know, when you think of our kids playing bowling, you've got the inflatables and it keeps the ball in the center. The nonprofit world keeps people in the center, and so a crisis or a limb breaking, so to speak, in a family sense, that keeps a disruption from being earth-shattering. And that is a ripple effect in the whole society in our community, because what happens when families are stressed? Families can't get to work. We don't have employees to do the things that we need. Our kids are not in school. When kids are not in school, they don't learn. And when kids don't learn, our school district suffers, and it's this huge ripple effect. So the nonprofit community is huge. It's robust. There's a lot of people, even in this room, that work in it, but it plays a really, really vital role to helping us all do the things that we need to do to survive.
Absolutely. And I think when we look at all of the people, many of you have served on those boards and continue to serve on those boards to keep the bumpers in place, as you say. I think that's a really important thing for us to think about. As we look at those nonprofits and as we think through things going forward, we recognize that it's not an either or. We have to have the industry leadership in oil and gas. We have to have the small businesses. We have to have all of these things, and our city leadership holding hands with our nonprofits. But we can't really do without any of those. We have to have all of them. And so I think it's important for us to talk about how they can hold hands. I know you all have roles in nonprofits and things that you're particularly passionate about, but can you share some things? Claire, we'll start with you. What are some practical ways that you think we can better get connected to our neighbors or find places to get involved in Midland?
I'm a huge component of Every Neighbor. Every Neighbor is a new organization here in West Texas, and all you have to do is go on to everyneighbor.com, and you can fill out a form of what are your interests, how do you want to get involved, and they kind of match make you with the perfect nonprofit for you to spend your time. It's been a great benefit, I think, for people that are new to our community, or maybe you're in a new stage of life and your kids are no longer at home, but you want to give back to our community, but you don't even know where to start. So Every Neighbor is something that I think is going to change the mold of our community.
Yeah, and it's been something that started right here in our community, and Every Neighbor is being applied to other places, but really it's niche for Midland, and it's a great place to get connected. Shankar, how are you resourcing your employees or finding ways to get involved for yourself and for the folks that you're around?
Look, I think finding something you're super passionate about, and so with our employees, there is 1,100 opportunities of an organization that may be what you're personally passionate about. And so look, we have a very young population. You referenced the average age here in Midland, Texas. And so I think there is a feeling a little bit amongst the young folks at times where it's like, look, there's not something for me to get in, to do on the weekend. And I think what we're doing is encouraging somebody to say, hey, if you're passionate about green spaces and, there's ways to be involved in Keep Midland Beautiful, right? There's tons of organizations. And so I think what we're just saying is, don't complain about a problem, be a part of the solution of the problem, which is find an organization. There's plenty here in Midland to go and donate your time to. This is a very generous community in terms of giving. I continue to be surprised about what we're able to do from a financial capacity, but for a lot of our new employees and new Midlanders, they may not be able to write that check, but man, they can show up on Saturday morning and do something really special, whether it's with troubled youth, whether it's with trash, or whether it's with X organization that you just are so passionate about. Getting involved is going to be a great way for you to give back.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've talked about this a lot from a lot of different platforms. Part of my stump speech is that I got involved because I was frustrated with things. And I didn't want to be a person who stayed here and complained. But I want you to know that you can start very small with that. When you see things that you're frustrated about, there are opportunities to plug in and be part of the solution for our community to address the things that you're frustrated about and start serving in those small ways. Many of you have done that successfully for many years, but you have children, you have coworkers, you have people that you're around who don't have that framework, who are complaining to you. And I would just encourage you to encourage them. Start small, start where you are, and find ways to make an impact into our community. That's what we need as a community, is the gritty people who are willing to work towards solutions. I'm going to shift gears again, and Claire, direct this question to you. I've followed your work for a while. I really admire what you're doing with Scout Guide and just the West Texas Scout Guide, and how you're drawing a lot of attention to some of these businesses that some of them have been here for years, and I didn't even know about them. But I think something that stands out is the level of creativity and the entrepreneurship in Midland's small business community. As we think about today and the future, how should we be thinking about small business in Midland, and how, you referenced this, but how can we more facilitate their success?
You know, I think oil is our backbone, but our local businesses are our heart. When I started the Scout Guide, it was right after pandemic. Oil was negative, but it was starting to creep back up. So when I was meeting with these new clients, a lot of them had never even heard what the Scout Guide was. I would say, oh, isn't this exciting? Oil's going back up. Everyone's going to be doing so great. And they're like, Claire, it's the opposite. When oil goes up, people don't support local anymore. It's not cool. They're going out of town to go shopping. They're buying another house, in another market. They're no longer hiring the architect across the street. They're hiring the architect in Houston. They're not even taking care of their flowers here because they're too busy taking care of their flowers at their lake house. And that's when a light bulb went off for me, and I said, I have to do this. This is now not just a side gig. This is a passion project, because our community is oil and gas for sure, but I think what makes it special are these mom and pop shops that's where you take your friends when they come visit you. You take them to the Murrays or the Venetias. I think it's really important that we don't forget that they need us so much. And when you go in and buy your running shoes from Midland Athletic versus just going on Amazon and Nike, it really influences our community as a whole.
Yeah, and we do have a lot of these amenities that we need to be pouring into. How do we think supporting small businesses really strengthens our broader community? And I think about this, we support them culturally because we're demonstrating that we're supporting them, but how does this economic tax-based long-term resilience, how do we think about that component of this?
I think people don't realize the impact supporting local does with our dollar. So about 80% of or 70% of every dollar that's spent at a local business comes back to our community, versus a big box is only 40%. So we can't complain about our streets, our playgrounds, our soccer fields if we're not spending our money here.
Yeah, and I think that's really important for us to remember. It's coming back to us in the form of sales tax, obviously, but it's also supporting the local families who started that business, and it's helping them to create that churn back into our local economy. It really does have an exponential impact, not just a linear one. So I hope that we'll all continue to do that. If you're not familiar with Scout Guide, we want you to go and familiarize yourself with them. She's the hostess with the mostest. She throws the best parties in Midland for sure.
You're kind.
We'll give you props for that.
Thank you.
As we kind of shift a little bit and talk about housing in Midland and workforce development, and this was referenced earlier, but we do have a huge gap between wealth and need in the city of Midland. And I think sometimes it's easy for us to forget about that. When oil prices are up, when we have a lot of opportunity for many of the people in our community, we tend to forget sometimes that there is a large segment of Midland who does not enjoy some of those same privileges. They don't have access to some of the privileges that we have. And so how do we think through caring well for the full community, creating real opportunity? How do we expand the access to these well-paying jobs, workforce development, housing options that allow people to build a stable future here? Joey, we'll start with you.
Thank you. I think referencing 1,100 nonprofits, I think we have all the tools here locally we need to solve these problems. We're resilient, gritty people in every good way. I think there's been numerous panels and groups to try to outsource how to solve these problems outside of Midland. And to my knowledge, none of them have worked. And so with that being said, I don't think we need to start a new nonprofit to solve these problems. I think we have plenty.
Amen. Yes.
But I think we do need to lean into the people who are already working in these spaces and who are already experts and figure out what their roadblocks are. Figure out what's preventing them from doubling and tripling what they're doing. And get them the resources they need, because there are already people doing all those things in every bucket that you just named and doing a really good job. They just need people like you funding them, serving on their boards, volunteering with them to help them actually scale and grow.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have anything you want to add, Shankar?
No, I would just say from a business perspective, one thing that we think when we're trying to create value, there's a lot of different elements to it. And, one is attracting and recruiting the best talent to come to Midland, Texas. And the thing that we run into over and over is the ability to find affordable, good housing. Right? We have a big contingent of hourly workers as well. But I think addressing housing just it is about affordability. But I think for whatever that next industry is for Midland, whether it's healthcare, whether it's data centers, we're going to need to be a destination for top talent. And if we can have great amenities and we're on that progress, but good affordable housing and good communities to live in is what people are wanting to do. And so I think whether we do it through a nonprofit or whether we just continue to make the investments as a community in these housing developments. I know nobody wants it in their backyard. Everybody wants it to be somewhere else, but it's great that we're growing as a community. The tax base gets bigger. We can get more amenities. But we just have to figure out ways to do that. And that's something that we run into, is somebody comes out here and says, oh my goodness, I can't believe how expensive it is at times. And so that's something that's important for us to address as a group, is affordable housing for all.
Absolutely. Claire, do you have any thoughts of how we can sort of keep in mind this gap between wealth and need in Midland and how we can address that?
Yeah, I think it's really important that we all notice that there is a huge gap. And it's really obvious because a few streets each way, we're seeing a very different lifestyle here in Midland, Texas, and we can't ignore that. I love being part of all the different nonprofits that we have, and I think that they are doing an amazing job, but we can't just let them do all the work. We're going to have to really get in ourselves and participate.
Yeah, and I think something that we see actually in reports about national generational conversations, but millennials and young people in our community are proving that they're willing to get in and work and help. And so I think helping to mobilize and motivate some of those folks to get in, to dig in, to participate in a local PTA that is not where your own children or grandchildren are going to school. There are schools in our community that do not have the parental support right there in their own neighborhood. And so there's an opportunity for you to fill out the application and join a PTA in a place that is not your own school or where your kids are. We need that kind of buy-in and support. I'm really thankful for Carl Borowski and the work that he does and other nonprofits where we're supporting and undergirding the work that our schools are doing, making sure that kids have what they need to eat, making sure we've got a lot of guys here in the room that are resourcing kids to have access to sports and opportunities where they wouldn't otherwise be able to go and play in a travel league sporting event. And so we need to make sure that we're coming alongside those organizations, even when it doesn't benefit our children directly. And I hope that you will consider where you might be able to do that. It really does not cost you very much money or very much time to participate in a PTA in an elementary school, to familiarize yourself with what the needs are in that campus and help to meet those needs. Those are the direct impact things that we ought to be doing more of as a community. And we have pockets where that's occurring, but we can resource those things even more fully. And so I would encourage you to look for those chances. As we're kind of going forward here and coming closer to our end point here, I want to talk about one of the things that I really admire so much about Midland is this community that we've talked a lot about: entrepreneurship, opportunity, grit, people who know how to get things done. I think we all pride ourselves on those things here. But I also believe that our best days are still ahead. We're not going back to 1986. Even if oil prices tank, we have resources and opportunity and smart people that are committed here in a different way than when we were kids growing up here. So what are some things that we can do to make sure that Midland is a place that our kids are proud to come home to, they're proud to visit someday, or maybe even they're proud to build their own lives here? What are some things that you believe we need to be investing in specifically right now? And Claire, can we start with you on that one?
So when I left Houston, all my friends thought it was a joke. They're like, there is no way that you're going back to this place called Midland. And I was like, no, it's great, it's great. And now that I've been here for almost 10 years, or been back, they get real jealous when I talk about my 15-minute commute, or the fact that my kids can play on our street until it's dark outside and I feel completely safe. They're also jealous when they hear about the meal trains when someone has a baby and it's 4 months long because everyone wants to participate and help. I think we have something special here and we gotta bottle it up. When you walk down the street, my husband always laughs because when we go into a restaurant, I'm scanning. I gotta see who's there so I can go talk. It's gonna take me 15 minutes to get to the table. And even when I'm out of town, I'm doing the same thing and I'm noticing they don't have that there. There's not people bouncing table to table like you see here. We have a community like no other, and we've really got to have this pride behind it, and because it's something special.
Absolutely, absolutely. What are some things that you think we need to pour into or continue to resource or maybe even bring to our community to make this a place our kids are happy to come back to?
I feel like this is where we talk about Trader Joe's, right? No.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, maybe I'll take a little bit of a more, direct approach. I mean, often in Midland I hear, hey, we don't need progress, or, this is the way it used to be. And in our companies, we often say, like, the most scary word is saying this is the way we've always done something. Yep. And so I think from Midland, what I see is just this idea of continuing to invest in healthcare, invest in education, invest in infrastructure, right? If we think of, we have Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but in a community, we're gonna have basic things that we need. And the city's done a great job in the 6 years we've been here of improving streets and parks. And then as you kind of move up Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we're gonna get to the point where people want a purpose, they want a sense of belonging. They're gonna need things like great education, great access to things that we want to do. I think the innovative piece here in this community is insane of what we have in the entrepreneurship, in large companies and small companies, and where innovation occurs. How do we take that same innovative mindset but use it in the community? We've got so many great leaders that are here in the audience, and I don't think Secretary Evans is here, but he talks about Alexis de Tocqueville, if you've seen him talk, right? And for those of you who don't know, Alexis de Tocqueville isn't from Andrews, Texas, right? He wrote a book in the 1830s about democracy in America, and the one thing that he said is what's really impressive is how Americans get involved first in local government, which I think we're in this room because we want that. But the second is how they get involved in their local church communities, et cetera. And so I think we have what makes such a unique piece that Claire just talked about, that this community, we just need to bottle it up. But I think the next 40 years are ones where we can't be scared of progress. Mm-hmm. I think we have to embrace it and move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Joey, what are some things that you think about making sure that this is a place that your boys want to come back to and they're proud to call home?
So I think both of y'all covered a lot of bases, but it's pretty simple. I think it's the narrative that we use internally and then externally. How many of us are victim to saying things about Midland? When your friends gripe about Midland from out of town, do you say, hey, Midland's actually great because we have this, 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 and this? Most people don't actually know how great Midland is because they haven't been here. The people that complain about this place have never been here, right? Or they were here 35 years ago and it's a whole different world. And so I think for Midland to really move beyond that, it takes everybody in this room, everybody in this community, reframing how we talk about Midland. We have thing after thing that we can talk about that makes this city world class. We may not have a Trader Joe's, and I'm actually okay with that. It's a great place, but I can survive without Trader Joe's. But we have this nonprofit community. We have all these great mom and pop stores. And then also the industry that we support here literally is fueling the nation. Like, that is a really big deal. That is part of our narrative. And I think for our kids to view that differently, it starts with us, how we talk about it, and making that shift about talking about Midland with great pride, immense pride, because it is an awesome place to live. I think we just have to start shifting that narrative.
Absolutely. As we prepared for this panel discussion, we met together and we were talking about what are some of the values that really undergird our community and what are the things that have made Midland for so many years. And we've talked about a lot of those already. We've talked about the hard work ethic, the grittiness, the resilience, and all of those things. But I also think that there is this understanding that we love this community and we want what's best for it going forward. And sometimes we disagree, actually, about how that's going to go. We've had heated debates. Many of us, people sitting in this room, have had heated debates about how how we're going to move those things forward. But it's important that we keep coming to the table. We keep remembering that we do fundamentally want the good for our community's future, and we have to keep coming to the table to have those debates and arrive at that better future for Midland. So with that, I want to give each of you just an opportunity to give your closing remarks. If there's something that I didn't ask you that you wanted to make sure you share with our crowd, and give you an opportunity to do that. So Joey, we'll start with you.
So I would just encourage each of you to find a way to be intentional. Connecting all these dots that we're talking about takes 5 seconds. There are so many great things going on here. There's people who want to do things and there's a need, and all it takes is for one person to be intentional and to connect those dots. So if you hear someone who says, I want to give back to the community, help them find a board to be on, help them find an organization that they get really, really excited about. If each of you do that, we solve our problem, right? It takes 5 seconds. It's not a lot of work. I just want to encourage each of you to be very intentional.
Absolutely. Shankar, anything you want to add?
Yeah, look, I mean, I was the one person on the committee, I think the only person on the board that's not from here originally. And like you said, I got here as quickly as I could. I mean, I started 6 years ago on what was going to be a 2-year assignment, and it's obviously gone a little bit longer than that, because this is a great place to be. Raising a family from a business perspective, and I think there's incredible potential in Midland, Texas. And you're right, Joey, we need to shake off this concept of here's all the things that aren't right in Midland and focus on the things that make Midland really a differentiated place to be. And I'm grateful for the progress that we've seen in just the 6 years that me and my family have been here in terms of the amenities and in terms of what we've brought. We have this saying in our family about having 2 a.m. friends. And in previous communities, we could think of maybe 1 or 2 people that were our 2 a.m. friends. I think that now we're blessed to have a long list of people, whether it's for a meal train. And that's something that I think any community would be just so jealous of, is that level of commitment. And so just excited about what Midland will be in 40 years. I don't think I'll be on a panel in 40 years here.
I think
right?
you will. I think
but anyway, in 40 years, what we're going to look back and say, hey, because of the people in this room, because of the people who volunteered their time, who gave their money, what Midland progressed from today.
Yeah. Claire, what about you?
I would just encourage y'all today, when you get onto Amazon, don't, and go straight to that small local store. Even just popping in on your way from home can make someone's day. You don't know if you're the only person that showed up that day. And so I just really encourage, I know that a lot of times we think we're just all oil and gas, and it is a big part of our community. But there are a lot of people that are risking big right now, so that their family can live a life that maybe generations before them never had the opportunity. So tonight, put down the phone, and tomorrow go into the store.
Absolutely. I think those are really important things for us to talk about, and thank you for sharing those perspectives. I want to just leave you with the understanding, and I hope that you've seen this, that Midland is a hopeful place to be, and we have a lot of opportunity ahead of us. We have our challenges, and we don't shrink back from acknowledging those, but we're committed to working towards solutions as a community, and we have an industry, we have small businesses, we have nonprofits, and we have so many of us that are holding hands to take Midland forward, to move Midland forward, and to address the problems that are concerning for the people that live here. So thank you very much, and we just appreciate your support for all of us.